I'm going to tie up another wet fly today. This is the Hardy's Favorite. So it was originally tied by James Hardy in the 1870s. If I'm correct, maybe the 1850s, but I think it was the 1870s. Obviously, it was one of his favorite flies because it became the Hardy's Favorite. I like it. It's an interesting pattern in that the color combinations of this, the gold and the red floss and the peacock herl, I just think it's awfully very pretty. Just a handsome fly. There's an interesting technique that I want to show in terms of tying in the wings on this that you can use not only with turkey wings like this, but with duck or goose, as well as even the rib. When I think about it, you're using floss for a rib rather than just wrapping it in. That's part of the reason I chose the Hardy Favorite, is to demonstrate a couple of interesting techniques, and it's a very, very pretty fly. So I'll get started with the Hardy's Favorite. I'll start the Hardy's Favorite by putting my hook in the vise. This is a Mustad 3399 in a size 8. I'm going to go ahead and debarb the hook. For thread, I'm using a Uni 8/0 in black. The body on this is Peacock Herl, so I don't have to worry about using a light colored thread, so I would not darken up any floss or anything. I will attach my thread about an eye length behind the eye of the hook, and I will wrap down the hook shank to just between the point of the hook and the barb. This will put me in position for the tail. The tail on the Hardy's Favorite is just made from some golden pheasant tippets. So you want to select a feather, has some fairly long tippets on that, so that you can get, I'd say, about a dozen or so off of there and tie those in. You can measure those about a shank length. Some people prefer to tie right on this black band, or even just have that showing just a little bit. It's up to you. I prefer to have it out just a little bit. Secure that down to the hook shank, and I'll trim the excess the length of the body. Now the rib on the Hardy's Favorite is actually floss. I've seen this fly tied in a number of different ways, and the body itself is made of peacock herl. I'm just going to use some strong herl here and red floss. The traditional way is to apply the peacock herl on, and then the red floss is put in as a rib. However, I have seen some people tie this where it's a floss body and the peacock herl is put in as a rib. I'm just using a Danville 4-strand Rayon floss in red. I'm just going to use one strand. You could use two if you wanted to, if you went with a much larger. Actually, for this one, I think I will use two. If I want these to be a little bit thinner, as I'm wrapping this in as a rib, I can always twist them to cord them up a little bit. I'll attach those to the hook, pulling those down so that the end length is the length of the body. Couple more wraps going down the hook shank just a little bit, and that is my rib. As I mentioned, for the body, I'm just using some strong Peacock Herl. I want to take about 5 strands, fairly long. I'm going to show you an interesting little technique for tying in Peacock Herl. Sometimes it can help, especially when you're using the strung Peacock Herl. The strung Peacock Herl, I think, oftentimes, and I'm using this mostly because I have a whole bunch of it, it will oftentimes get kind of banged around and everything, and the actual barbs right here and the barbules that are on them can be a little bit thinner or shorter, or not quite as full. If you get a full peacock feather and you steam it, you take care of it and everything, you can get nice full herls off of that. But the strung packages sometimes are just not quite as full. What I'm going to show you here is a different method than just wrapping all of them in. I'm going to try to match the butt ends up and trim most of the white out of there, because when I tie this in along the hook shank, I want these ends to be the length of the body, and then I'm going to attach those to the hook shank. Then I'm going to wrap forward. I want to have touching turns, mostly because I want to keep a nice smooth underbody as well as foundation for the Peacock Herl body. If it's not, if there aren't exact touching turns, I think you're just fine as long as you get just a nice smooth underbody. Now, as I mentioned, if I took all of these herls, I could wrap all 5 of them in at once. But to get something that looks maybe a little bulkier and a little fuller, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take 3 of them, and I'm going to wrap these in now. And then I'm going to come back and wrap the last 2 in. And what you'll see is by wrapping those in and having them kind of wrap in on top of the others and in between, it gives it a little bit more body and it makes it look a little bit fuller. This is just a different technique. You can certainly just wrap all 5 of those in if you want. I have known a few people that also will steam even these strung herls, just to get them a little bit fuller. Take the other 2 and I just start wrapping those in. Again, each wrap right in front of the other. And you'll notice it just kind of thickens it up a little bit, gets any imperfections out, makes it look a little fuller. As I said, it's just a different technique. Secure those in and trim away the excess. I'm going to clean this up just a little bit and get my thread about an eye length down from the eye of the hook. I don't want to crowd the eye on this. So for the rib, you can just go ahead and wrap this in nice and flat if you want to have more of a flat area. And see, when you do this, notice it looks almost as though it's a floss body with a Peacock Herl rib. I would rather have more of the peacock showing. So what I will do is twist up the floss just by rolling it in my fingers, giving it a clockwise twist. Then I'll bring it around and I'll start wrapping it in as a rib. Notice that it's much less pronounced. Don't worry about little flyaways like that. You can clip those out after we get this secured. I like it this way better because I like the iridescent greens of the Peacock Herl, and I think that red kind of darkens up almost to like a maroon. Just color combinations, it's just very handsome. Get your 5 wraps of your rib in. Secure that and trim away the excess. As I said, any flyaways like that, we can trim again, coming down to the eye and wrapping backwards, I'm just going to clean this area up so that I have a nice level area for the throat and my wing. The throat on the Hardy's Favorite is just some brown hackle fibers. I'm using some Schlappen. This is just a strung Schlappen here. Picked a Feather has some nice long fibers right down here at the base. Took the fluff already off. All I want to do is get these out so that they're about 90 degrees to the rachis. That will even the tips up right here. Then I can peel all those off. I kind of want to roll these and fold these together. I don't want to just squish them down in a clump. Because when I tie these in, I want these to be just a little bit vertical like that. That way, when I tie this in, it will actually tend to fan out a little bit more underneath as opposed to just looking like a clump of hackle fibers. Little pinch wrap underneath there. Secure that in. Take a look at how that looks. Clip away the excess. And clean that up a little bit. Now we're ready for our wing. Now the wing on the Hardy's Favorite is made out of turkey. Turkey is a very interesting material to work with because it has such long fibers. And when you get out to, say, these barbs right here, they tend to be thicker down here towards the actual rachis of the feather, and they taper off down towards the ends. What this means is that you don't get, like with your duck wings, you don't get kind of a more, I don't know, sharper or steeper, I should say not steeper, but flatter end to it. These can be really, really tapered. So I've got a couple of nice slips here. These are awfully wide. You'll notice that they're much wider than the gap of the hook. Part of that is because they're thinner. The barbs are actually thinner up on this end than they are back on this end. I could probably take a few of those out. I'll just take that out, trim that down a little bit. Now I'm going to show you a technique when I tie these in. I want the tips, I'm going to go all the way back to the end of the tail here, and you'll see why. But when I tie these in, I'm going to start just like a traditional kind of wing with a pinch and loop wrap like this. But once I get that loop on the other side hanging, I'm going to grab the front part of that slip, roll my left hand back a little bit, and then pinch down with the right, as you can see, kind of letting the thread and the weight of the bobbin pull those barbs down to the hook shank. Then I'm going to wrap in a few more wraps to secure it, and then take a look at what I got. Not bad. Kind of some of it came apart there on that wing. We can massage that to get that back together, and understand when you're fishing this fly, that's exactly what's going to happen. All of that's going to kind of come apart anyway. There you go. So that gives us a little bit better wing in terms of the swoop of it and the fullness of it. I'll trim away the excess. This is the excess slips that I just cut. If these are long enough, save these, because if you do a lot of nymphs, those are great for wing cases on nymphs. Got a little bit of some barbs over here that kind of poked out. Turkey can be rather difficult to work with. I think I've mentioned that in some other videos. And that's why part of the reason I chose the Hardy's Favorite. I think it's a very handsome fly, but I wanted to show also that there's, you can help the wing, you can assist it, as it were, by pushing down on the barbs to the hook to help form the wing a little bit easier. You have just a few that snuck out there. So we got the head smoothed off. We'll put in a 5 or 6 turn whip finish. Cut my thread off. Put some head cement on that. Let that soak down in there, and then I'll put some black lacquer on that to make that look nice and finished. So that's your Hardy's Favorite. Again, I think it's a very handsome fly. It's a very, very pretty fly. But I chose it for a couple reasons. The body, of course, I like the colors and everything on that, and the floss used over the Peacock Herl as a rib. But mostly when you're doing these matched wings with the turkey can be really forgiving in some respects, especially with smaller flies, but at the same time it can be kind of difficult to work with sometimes. Especially if you got to really kind of pick out the turkey feathers so they have the characteristics you're looking for. So that is the Hardy's Favorite, and I hope you enjoyed that.
Thanks for joining me at the Vise today. I hope you learned at least a new pattern, if not a new technique, maybe a tip or trick here and there. If you have any questions about this fly or any of the techniques used in constructing this pattern, please leave them in the comments section down below. If you go to the trouble to ask a question, I'll go to the trouble to answer it. If you'd like to help dressed irons, please share this video with your friends and anybody you think that might enjoy this pattern. Until next time, remember, it's fly tying. If you're not having fun, then you're doing it wrong.